Today, we're going to talk about something truly epic. Imagine deciding to move an entire river. Not around something, but under it. And not just anything, but under the world's busiest shipping lane. It sounds like science fiction, but it's the real story of the Sarabium Siphon. You know, this quote really captures a dream that goes back generations in Egypt. The land of turquoise, that's the Sinai Peninsula. For so long, the vision was to turn its vast golden sands into green, thriving farmland. All right, so here's how we're going to break this incredible story down. We'll start with that big dream for the Sinai. Then we'll hit the massive wall that stood in the way. After that, we dive into the engineering miracle that solved it, watch the desert literally start to bloom, and finally, we'll meet the people whose lives were changed forever. For Egypt, making the Sinai green has always been more than just planting crops. It's about connecting with a crucial piece of the country, a land that's just overflowing with history and strategic importance. But actually making it bloom, well, that's always been the ultimate test. It's one thing to have a dream, right? It's a whole other thing to make it happen. And it wasn't for lack of trying. People had made honest attempts before to get things growing in the Sinai, but they just never quite got there. The sheer scale of the problem always seemed to be one step ahead of the solutions. So what was the big holdup, the main obstacle? It was a massive, man-made river of ships, not water, the Suez Canal. It literally cuts the country in two, separating the water-rich Nile Delta from the thirsty Sinai Desert. It was a colossal barrier. And that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? We're not talking about a little garden hose here. We're talking about diverting a huge volume of water, basically a tributary of the Nile, underneath a never-ending parade of supertankers and cargo ships, all without messing up global trade. How do you even begin to do that? Well, the answer was to go deep, and I mean really deep. The plan called for tunneling 120 meters below the surface. To give you some perspective, that's like digging a tunnel underneath a 30-story skyscraper. Nothing on this scale had ever even been attempted in Egypt before. So you can imagine there were a lot of doubters. The technical challenges were just mind-boggling. The pressure from the soil at that depth, the fact they needed custom-built machinery. Most experts were saying, look, this is a job for one of those huge international engineering corporations. And even for them, it's going to take forever. But here's where the story takes a fantastic turn. The challenge wasn't handed off to some foreign company. It was taken on by Egyptian companies, with Egyptian engineers and workers. It really became a point of national pride to prove that the so-called impossible could be done right at home. And this was their solution, the Sarabium Siphon. So what is it? Think of it as a giant concrete aqueduct buried way, way deep in the earth. Its whole job is to grab agricultural drainage water from the west, water that would otherwise go to waste, and shoot it across to the other side of the canal to start a new life. So let's trace the journey of the water. It flows in from the delta. Then it dives into the first set of tunnels to get under the original Suez Canal. It comes up briefly under the island in the middle, and then it takes an even deeper plunge to get under the new Suez Canal, finally popping up on the other side, in the Sinai, ready to work its magic. And just look at the impact. The numbers here are just staggering. The old systems they had in place could barely get 1 million cubic meters of water over there a day. The Sarabium Siphon, it more than doubles that. It's a powerful, reliable flow that can actually sustain huge areas of farmland. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Not only did they finish the project, but it was a roaring success that leveled up the country's own expertise. It was like a real-world training ground that created a whole new generation of engineers who now had experience on a world-class mega project. But hey, tunnels and concrete are really just the opening act. The real show starts when that water finally meets the sand. This is where all that incredible engineering turns into a story about life. I mean, the difference is just night and day. Before, farming in the Sinai was a constant battle. The water supply was weak, unreliable. You could only farm small patches of land. But afterwards, the project unlocked over 70,000 new acres, letting farmers actually push the desert back. You can look at charts and numbers all day, but nothing hits home like this. Just hearing a farmer list off what's growing from what used to be empty sand, figs, lemons, olives, that right there, that's the real measure of success. And you know, one of the most amazing discoveries was just how incredibly fertile the Sinai soil actually was. All it needed was water. Farmers found that pretty much anything they planted didn't just grow, it thrived. That yellow sand was just waiting for its chance to turn green. And that brings us to the whole point of any great project like this, the people. This was never just about moving water from point A to point B. It was about building new communities and creating brand new futures for thousands of families. So they built this model community, Qaryat El Amal, which means the village of hope. And here, they didn't just give families a piece of land and say, good luck. They gave them a life. Every family got 5 acres, a new house, and a village that was ready to go with a school, a clinic, a market, everything you need to build a community from the ground up. And here's the human face of it all. This is Shaban. He packed up his entire family and moved to the Sinai to start fresh. For him, and for so many others, this land isn't just a farm. It's a real opportunity for his kids, a chance to build something that's truly theirs. What's also really remarkable is the social vision they built into this. The land was handed out with this core principle of equality, making sure that women had the same exact ownership rights as men. As one young woman put it, this was proof of the idea that the girl is like the boy. Now, this is really cool how the community actually came together. You have all these new residents, right? They're total strangers coming from all over Egypt. At first, they were all struggling with the high cost of labor. But out of that problem came this beautiful solution. They just started helping each other out, working on each other's farms. And through that shared sweat and effort, a real community was born. It really leaves you with a big question to think about. When we look back on these massive projects, what's the real legacy? Is it the tons of concrete and the engineering genius? Or is it the strength of the communities that grow on top of that foundation? In the end, I think this beautiful poetic line says it all. It's like a message carried on the wind, telling every last grain of sand the story of how human will didn't just move a river, it gave a desert a reason to grow.